All right, brothers. All right, sisters. All right, disters. This is where we're at today, and it is this is Jordan B. Peterson, Twitter ban. Now, apparently, Jordan was banned on Twitter. I looked it up. I think it was like more of like a suspension. I don't think it was like a permanent ban or anything. Um, and the reason that Jordan got banned was this tweet here. Now, it was obviously removed for very obvious reasons. And Jordan's still on Twitter. I see him right here. He must have got removed, banned for a certain period of time. So probably like a week or something. Anyway, it is this. Remember when? Okay, so this is Elliot Page, formerly Ellen Page. I don't even remember their old name. As part of the Umbrella Academy. Now I've been watching the season. It's actually pretty good. I'm gonna give you a little bit of a boomer moment though. The transition was annoying from female to male. Not because it happened, but, and this is just me personally, my wife yells at me. She's like, why do you care? She's like, you need to stop. And like, that's the thing. Listen, bro, I don't always have to be justified in how I feel. I'm just old and annoying. But like, they did a transition, which was like very abrupt. And I get it. They established it. They did like a thing where they established it. There's a man now. All good. Victor instead of Vanya. Okay. Little weird, but hey, listen, I'm for it. Didn't really get too much in the way of the story, which was good. They, pretty much just like a pretty quick thing. All right. But like then they had to keep doing it over and over again. Or for like every single character, they're like, "Oh, I'm a boy now." It's like, "Holy fuck, we already know." You know what I mean? Like they had to reestablish to every fucking character. Like, "Oh my god," like it was just annoying. Anyway, enough of my boomer rant. It says Elliot Page is proud to introduce trans character on Umbrella Academy. Okay, whatever. Cool, I get it. Jordan B. Peterson said it is a good show. The season's actually good. I have to finish it, but I've been watching Stranger Things. Peterson responds with, "Remember when pride was a sin?" And Elliot Page just had her breasts removed by a criminal physician. Now, first of all, when it comes to the conversation about minors transitioning, I'm very hesitant about it. I understand on the one hand that there are trans kids that exist because like every single trans person, if you ever talk to a trans person, they're always like, when I was a kid, I knew. At the same time, we have to be careful about misdiagnosing, especially like young people, I think are in a very sensitive sphere where they're experimenting with themselves and they got a lot of different influences coming all over the place. So I think that it's a hard decision. Personally, not for children transitioning, right? But, and I get why you wouldn't be either. I'm hesitant about it. That being said, it's a grown fucking adult. And they got a top surgery. Who gives a shit? So why would the physician be criminal? Right? Is it criminal to give a woman fucking bigger tits? Like, hey, you have a nice pair of tits. They're C cups. Yeah, I want fucking Fs. Is that fucking criminal? I think so. You're ruining some naturally beautiful boobies. That's the only real criminal act. Is like, what are you doing? You okay, this one's a little too sexist. But like I said, it's consenting adult. Like who fucking cares? If they made a mistake, I don't even care. They're an adult. They probably didn't though. It seems like they're happy. Good for them. I actually like Elliot Page because listen, they're just like, hey, I'm trans and deal with it, and they're moving on. It's not their whole identity. All right, the whole identity of Victor isn't being trans. I just want you to know. Like they establish it, but it doesn't like make the character any different. So I was like, that's cool. It's cool. I like But anyway, this rant. So that second part is just stupid. The first part, remember when pride was a sin? I was sitting here and I'm like, what are you trying to say? Like, what are you trying to say, Jordan? What does this mean? What, you remember when pride was a sin? Now, somebody said that what it sounds like you're saying is remember when like being pride like LGBT was a sin. That's what it sounds like. However, I remember reading the follow-up tweet, which it doesn't exist anymore because everything was deleted. And I think, if I'm being charitable, and I don't even know if I believe this, but I had like a couple of people in my chat when we watched this on stream. Previously, they were like, I think what he's trying to say, dude, I don't even know if this makes any fucking sense, is that, do you remember when, I don't even know, when you being prideful of something was when you were fighting against adversity? saying it out loud doesn't make it sound right. Dude, there's no mental gymnastics I can go through. This just feels incredibly homophobic. At best, maybe he was trying to say, like, when you're prideful of something, usually you're fighting against a status quo. I don't know. I don't fucking know, dude. They're proud, and you want to know why? Because people like you are just shitting on them for existing. Like, of course they're going to be proud. They're like, yeah, I'm fighting against the general level of adversity. Like, yeah, you are the adversity, Jordan. Yeah, I don't know. I don't get it. Anyway, sounds homophobic to me. So they got banned, rightfully so, in my opinion. You know, you could be like, hey, you're weird for being trans, like, whatever. But, like, you know, you're being an asshole saying that, like, pride is terrible. Oh, was he saying that? Oh, what the fuck? That's what he was trying to say? When pride was one of the 7 deadly sins? Are you being... I thought you were trolling in my chat. Wait, this motherfucker was literally trying to say, dude, next level fucking... Holy fuck, Jordan. Jesus Christ, Jordan. Is that what you're trying to say? That... Do you remember when pride was a bad thing? Dude, what are you, fucking insane? What a weird point to make. Do you even, like, question the way that your words are interpreted, Jordan? What the fuck? And, like, I could see him saying that because he's just so fucking insane. Jordan is very smart when it comes to, like, mental health stuff. But Jordan is a fucking idiot when it comes to anything outside of that. Not because of his fundamental perspective, but because, like, dude, this is how you articulate your fucking self? She's like, yeah, or sorry, he. It's like, oh, or they. I think they use they in the show. It's he pronouns. I think it's he, they. Oh, whatever. Okay, who cares? He, they, whatever. Elliot's like, hey, I'm proud to do this thing. Jordan's like, oh, well, pride used to be a sin. If I said I was proud to be like a fucking American, you'd be like, yes, Jordan, you wouldn't have a problem with that, would you? Sounds like you're just fucking nitpicking and insane. Either way, it comes off as incredibly homophobic. And I think that it probably still is. Maybe just not as bad. But this whole thing, like, oh, it's one of the 7 deadly sins. What's up, baby girl? Okay. Fucking demon. Anyway, let's listen to this Twitter ban. Jesus, dude, what a trip.
A few days ago, I penned an irritated tweet in response to one of the latest happenings on the increasingly heated culture war front.
Yo, this person just said that they were happy, and you were like, oh, I disagree. Like, that was your...
In response to the decision of an actor named Ellen...
Whoa, actor. Very good.
Elliot Page.
All right, now you're being facetious.
I am employing this awkward and impossible naming style because it is now apparently mandatory, and am probably doing it wrong.
Wait, what? Dude, what? Okay, like, you can be transphobic, whatever, but it's not hard to just call that person Elliot now. Like, it's not particularly complicated. Why are you pretending it is?
Nonetheless, as you're doing it wrong is the whole point of what has been made mandatory. But also, I'm trying to make a point.
The dramatic jump cuts are just it's making me horny. It's making me real horny.
I've essentially been banned from Twitter as a consequence.
For like a week, I guess.
I say banned, although technically I have been suspended. But the suspension will not be lifted unless I delete the hateful tweet in question, and I would rather die than do that.
That... Can we talk about, like, okay, so not for nothing, but the fundamental irony here is that your unwillingness to delete the tweet comes from your pride. It comes from your ego. It comes from which you remember when that used to be a sin? You know what I'm saying? So, like, we're kind of brain frying ourselves here. I'd rather fucking die than delete this tweet. Wow. Jordan, it sounds like you're become the thing you criticized. That's your pride, Jordan. Speaking, you're very hypocritical, Mr. Peterson.
And hopefully it will not come to that, although who the hell knows in these increasingly strange days. What was it that I said that caused such a fuss? And that fuss is just beginning.
Bro, and he's trying to, like, martyr himself.
More importantly,
I used to love Jordan. I think he's so smart when it comes to psychology. This guy's a fucking nut. It's not because he's more conservative leaning. It's just the way that he expresses himself is unhinged. I've never heard somebody say this before, the way he said it, in, like, such a weird way.
Actually, what exactly was it that I said that resulted in the ban? Here's the tweet in question.
Among Us.
Remember when pride was a sin? And Ellen Page just had her breasts removed by a criminal physician. And then a link to a story that detailed out the...
It's interesting that Twitter makes you delete your stuff instead of just deleting it themselves. it's almost like barbaric. It's like, yeah, we're taking this down. We're not taking this tweet down. You are. You are. Wait, hold on. So wait. Are you telling me that Jordan isn't actually banned? He just had to say delete the tweet and he would have been back on, but he's, what the fuck?
Happenings. The response from Twitter, quote, violating our rules against hateful conduct. You may not promote violence against, threaten, or harass other people on the basis of race, ethnicity, national origin, sexual orientation, gender identity, religious affiliation, age, disability, or serious disease. By clicking delete, you acknowledge that your tweet violated the Twitter rules.
We've learned one thing today, and it's that Jordan would make a terrible, audiobook, narrator. Okay?
Delete. If you think we've made a mistake, submit an appeal to us.
Why are you so
Please
upset
note
about
that,
this?
should you do so, your account will remain locked while we review your appeal.
Okay.
Let's take this apart.
Okay, let's do it.
First, it is clearly the case that I did not promote violence against or threaten anyone with my missive. So that leaves the arguably lesser sin of harass. Let's assume, since I wasn't informed, that that was the crime. And further, harassment on the basis of so-called gender identity, since Twitter did not do me the favor of actually specifying my crime, and there are many possibilities on that front. We unfortunately have to guess at why this has occurred, and that's actually a big problem in and of itself.
I mean, that fundamentally is a problem where platforms will remove something, but they won't be specific. I wouldn't fight for it here because what he said was insane.
And also indicative of the utter carelessness of the Twitter organization with regard to the propriety of its own censorial actions.
Okay.
I should at least know exactly what I did wrong if I am required to acknowledge that.
I think it's the interpretation that pride is a fundamental sin, even though you may not have meant it that way. Like people call like gay pride, like pride parade. That's how I interpret it. I think that's how most people interpreted it.
Tweet violated the Twitter rules. What rules, you sons of bitches? Exactly. Precisely. Because such
Bro, when he curses, it sounds so silly.
things matter when the accusations start flying. So what did I say that might constitute harassment?
Okay.
Well, many things, hypothetically. Let's begin with,
Oh my God.
remember when pride was a sin? Although that is merely a factual statement, because under the old rules, applicable even a decade ago, pride was a sin and had been recognized as perhaps the cardinal sin for thousands of years previously.
Dude, that's insane. Okay, you guys were right. That was what he meant. Like, pride is a sin. What a weird fucking... Dude, like, you're a fucking weirdo. That was not communicated well at all. Because if it was, then I think that he wouldn't have got the ban. I think what people think he's basically, what people are interpreting it as, you're saying that gay people are a sin. Trans people are a sin. That's what people are interpreting it as, Jordan.
It still might be regarded as unacceptable to the woke authoritarian moralists who now insist, for example, that we celebrate.
But like, also, this is like such a dumb fucking point because like conservatives, and myself included, and I know he's from Canada, but conservatives talk about how they're like proud to be fucking Americans all the time. It's like in our anthem or something. It's in something. I'm proud to be an American. Right? So like we conservatives, progressives, we use the word pride as a positive all the time. Nobody uses it with a negative connotation. And like the first, like you're only talking about the word pride being used and being bad historically when it comes to a trans person. It's still bizarre.
Pride Month, not hour or day or week, but month, and to have literally called it Pride Month instead of LGBT plus month or whatever else alphabet.
Well, it's gay pride. It's LGBTQ pride. They just kind of like shortened it because that's a mouthful, you know?
Acronym which is currently insisted upon as the only acceptable enlightened terminology. I don't regard pride as a virtue. It has been classically regarded as a sin. I don't see that sexual orientation or sexual desire of any sort.
Bro, now if I ever hear you say that you're proud of something in some capacity, we're gonna fucking snipe you. This motherfucker, I guarantee you, has said like he's proud of his daughter before. Like, and he's like, remember when pride was a sin? The day before, I'm so proud of you, honey. You're doing so well. You know what I mean? Like this, dude. There's no fucking way. You're insane. This perspective is insane. You don't think that the word pride is bad. I just don't believe that. I don't believe that, dude.
Something to celebrate or to take pride in, And so what I said was merely a fact. Now, it's possible that I hurt someone's feelings because I pointed out that pride goes before, for example, a fall, but I don't care about that.
No.
Would do it again. And also consider it my duty to
This pride is causing you to fall.
warn those who are about to fall into a pit that the path they are on leads suddenly downhill. But that was probably not the reason that I was banned from Twitter, although, as I said, I am in the position of having to guess. Next phrase to interrogate.
Yay.
And Ellen Page. Now, why did I stop
cool.
there?
I'm hit.
Because in all likelihood, it was this seemingly innocuous phrase, including the name of a well-known actress, there I'm in trouble again, that like...
Isn't it the most cringe thing to do when you say something that you know is going to be considered, or you think is going to be considered provocative, and you're like, see, I'm in trouble. It's like, you're being annoying. You know what I mean? It's like childish. Like, if you're going to be dumb, like, just be like, yeah, it's an actress. Like, I disagree. I think that it's an actor. Can you take me seriously right now? How about this? Am I more serious like this? I can't strap it because my head's too fat. But like, it's so cringe when you're like, when it's like kids who say, like, they're like, oh, you're a duty head. Oops, I wasn't supposed to say that. You know what I mean? Like, that's the energy that you're getting here.
likely resulted in my ban. I committed the fatal crime of what has come to be known in the appalling sensorial terminology of the insane activists as dead naming, which is the act of referring to someone who...
Not for nothing. I'm pretty sure that it's because people, they interpreted you saying that like LGBTQ pride is a sin. I think that's why. That's what most people got out of it. So I think that you're being a suspicious character from the popular video game. You're very bad at communicating with people, Jordan. You're a fucking up. You're terrible with that. You know, and that I'm just saying, you're horrible at it.
who has transitioned, another hated piece of jargon and slogan, by the name and by the inference, the gender, really the sex, that everyone knew them by previously, and in the case of Ellen
Them. Good.
/
Yes.
Elliot, that millions of people recognized and knew. So I should...
Well, it's not really Ellen / Elliot, though. See, like, this is the problem, right? I've heard conservatives, they're like, hey, listen, I'm not going to use, like, she, her pronouns or whatever. Okay. Or in this case, I'm not going to use he, him pronouns. But I'll call you by your name. I guarantee you that Elliot has changed their name to Elliot legally. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you're not even being correct. They're Elliot now. You can still think they're a girl, but that's their fucking legal name. So why the fuck aren't you just calling him Elliot? Because you want to say Elliot / Ellen to make you feel better. Because like, even though you're factually incorrect about their name, you just want to be kind of a duty head. You know, it's one thing to call them she, but like their name, I'm going to make a reasonable assumption that they have the resources to change that name, is fucking Elliot. So just call them fucking Elliot.
should have either called him, her, they, Elliot, instead of Ellen, although as we will discover, that would have made it impossible for me to say what I wanted to and need to say in the remaining phrases. Not that such a problem would bother those who are objecting to my speech in the first place. The next phrase is, just had her breasts removed. This bit suffers from a very similar problem.
Yeah.
I employed the forbidden pronoun her when Elliot, Ellen, is now to be regarded as a he.
I feel like Jordan really felt like he was being a very based king here when he was like, I'm going to say Elliot's a girl. And he was like feeling himself really heavy about it. I think that he thought he was making a good point that was not going to get negative attention. But people have been relentlessly shitting on him. And at first I was like, hey, this is not good. But now, I mean, Jordan, you're kind of asking for it, brother. You're kind of asking to get owned by the libs at this point, you know?
Or else. But there's a conundrum here, to say the least, and not just for me, although I have been banned because of it.
Why is he so concerned with breasts? Because breasts are nice, dude. I can't believe Elliot got rid of their nice boobies. All right, listen. Don't worry. It's okay that I said that. I'm just sexist. It's okay that I say those things. Don't worry about it.
Elliot / Ellen a she or a he, or Ellen or Elliot, when she or he or they, that's Elliot or Ellen, by the way, had his or her or their breasts removed. If he or she was a he, then why was it necessary to have the mastectomy? And how could those I'm writing to make sense of what I was saying if it was his breasts that were removed? Were those male breasts or female breasts that were removed? If they were male breasts...
Yo, he used to have nice boobies. Sorry, I mean, like, oh, dude, I know you're not supposed to do stuff like that. You're not supposed to... But I'm looking... I Googled it, and... you know... I could have just not told you guys because now I just look like kind of an asshole. But not bad. I mean, live your truth, brother. But boobs are boobs. You know what I mean? I'm just looking. I don't care. I'm moving on.
Then why were they removed? If they were female breasts,
because they made her, because this is the thing, is that like Elliot probably understands that like their breasts were female breasts. There's a general difference between the way that men breasts tend to look and female breasts tend to look, and they were very male looking breasts, and they had dysphoria associated with that. What's happening here is Jordan is getting like really logged up in like some of the insane leftist speech when it comes to conversations about gender and sex from fucking morons, like 12-year-old idiots that like pretend that they're non-binary, right? That's what he's arguing against. Elliot is a normal fucking person. So they go like, oh, I'm a boy with female breasts and this gives me great discomfort. I would like to remove them. That's it. It's not that deep. The overwhelming majority of trans people understand there are general differences between like men and women, and that's why they are doing their best to transition to look like the sex that they were, the gender that they would like to look like. It's not like that deep. Like most fucking people aren't insane 14-year-old non-binary TikTok fucking idiots. Elliot's a normal fucking person. Like, it's not that fucking deep. So, like, you're going into this, like, insane pseudo-intellectual, like, bullshit that you're just feeding off of idiot TikTok kids. But Elliot's just like, yeah, these are girl boobs. I want to get rid of them. They make me upset. That's fucking it, dude. And you know what? If I had fucking girl tits, look at this. Those are boy tits. They're fat boy tits. But if I had girl tits, I'd cut them off too, motherfucker. Okay? If I had fucking bitch tits called gyno, and I had girl nipples, I'd be fucking... You know what I'm saying, dude? You know what I'm saying? But I have boy tits, so I'm okay with it. If Elliot had boy tits from the first place, they probably wouldn't feel dysphoria. Okay? Nice face.
Had therefore become objectionable to the degree that surgery generally reserved for cancer treatment was required, was morally obligatory, then wasn't Elliot still Ellen and he still she?
No.
How could I possibly have written that sentence in any sensible manner whatsoever?
Well, you didn't. That's why nobody thinks it makes sense.
While simultaneously making my point understandably and not breaking Twitter rules against so-called hateful conduct.
Oh, okay.
And Elliot Page just had his breasts removed?
Yes. You could have quoted the his to make it facetious if you wanted. Either way, it's probably not why you got banned, so.
Was he Elliot then? When exactly? Exactly. He was definitely Ellen at some point in the past.
Yes, that's true.
Or so indicate all his, her, them, their film credits. Will all those have to be reshot since they employed the hated dead name?
No, because historically, like, just so you know, like, and this is actually a real thing from talking to trans people, it's okay to, and usually you want to ask the person, but like, it's okay to like refer to them like as if they used to be a girl. Like, Elliot's not gonna fucking kill himself because you were like, oh, you remember when you acted and you were a girl in that movie? As long as you're in a respectful context, they're not gonna be like, ah! They probably look back at that time as like upsetting in some ways, but also like, oh, I'm happy because I grew my career in other ways. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, no, that would be insane. That would be unhinged. If Elliot was like, we have to reshoot the entire Umbrella Academy, I have to be a boy, and the entire thing retconned it. That would be like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? But they were just like, hey, can we just change my character a little bit so I can like dress comfortably? And they were like, yeah, sure. So
That doesn't exist, by the way, that dead name category, except in the sensorial and addled minds of a tiny fraction of insanely narcissistic and increasingly dangerous trans activists.
Okay.
When precisely was it incumbent on me to switch my terminology in regard to Elliot/Ellen so that I was not engaging in hateful conduct? And how can I describe the fact that someone who was once a woman, and really still is, had her breasts cut off because she, he, they, their, them had
You're making this very wordy.
Had fallen prey to a viciously harmful fad without using the appropriate sex-linked pronoun and the real name of the real person to whom this was really done.
So, like, this is the really big problem with, like, I think the way people interpret transness is that they think that because some of it is a fad, that all of it is a fad. Because, like, let's be honest, there are people who are not actually trans who identify as trans. It is an objective truth. It is mostly younger people. If you look at the statistics, like in California, my understanding is historically, trans women used to be the predominant amount of trans identifying people, you know, male to female. Nowadays, it's actually trans men, so female to male, and non-binary. And this is happening a lot in like more progressive areas. There's clearly a social influence factor in some capacity, right? That doesn't mean that all trans people are just full of shit. What it seems like to me is like when I was younger, everybody was like, "Oh, I'm a fucking bisexual," like, or I like music. I like metal a lot, and they over-identify. I think that there's an aspect of social influence in some ways to be non-binary, because it doesn't take anything to be non-binary. No offense, you know, for the most part, like if you're not diagnosed with gender dysphoria, you know, like what does it necessarily mean to you? This is a conversation. Like, what does it mean to you to be non-binary if you don't have gender dysphoria? You know, and I'm not saying you're not valid, but like it's, you know, for some people, a lot of people, I think a lot of younger people, maybe they're exploring their gender, or maybe they're just looking for a way to be unique without any effort. And they dress like a little somewhat androgynously and they say they're non-binary. And I would argue that a lot of them are going to grow out of it when they get older and go like, oh, that was a phase. And it doesn't actually mean anything to me. I was just young. That happens. But that's not reasonable to assign to Elliot, because like they lived like through their adult life as a woman. And then there's no social influence. Like that's what I think the worst social, or the most aggressive, or not aggressive, the most present social influence, or the most influential social influence is going to be in high school. High schools are and middle school are like, schooling in general, if you look back at it, is super toxic. You know, like fundamentally, where people are like super, like there's a lot of cliques, there's a lot of aggression, small things blow up into big deals. Fundamentally, those things are toxic as fuck. And then you introduce like gender identity to it. So when you're in that field, I could see why maybe you get it wrong. I could see that's where my hesitation comes from in some cases, where for kids even transitioning in general, because like how much, like what if there is like a social influence, like there is a conversation to be had about that. Elliot's like fucking 35 or something. How old is fucking Elliot Page? 30. Oh shit, I was right. 35. How the fuck did I know that? That was a crazy guess. They're 30 fucking 5. What, like the argument doesn't hold up. The argument doesn't hold up. It's not the same in the adult world. It's not. I'm just telling you. It's not as toxic or as insane. People, like, I specifically remember the experience of like leaving high school and going into college, and like the amount of stress and pressure was drastically different. It's much different. Now, maybe there's still some lingering effect there, but it's very different. And maybe that's like that's how it is nowadays. But back then, I'm the similar age to Elliot, so like, my experience is going to be more similar to their experience. You know what I'm saying? Where like it's different now. They didn't have. I doubt that they had this influential like you're non-binary. In fact, it was probably like shunned and frowned upon. So they probably felt the way about it. Like they felt about, they felt their transness manifesting as a younger, but it wasn't allowed, so they suppressed it. Nowadays, that's not necessarily happening, right?
With their voluntary but unfortunate acquiescence. And so it was impossible to communicate what had happened to my audience without apparently running afoul of the impossible and absurd rules that now hypothetically govern morality itself.
Well, I think that like if you had just said, remember when pride was a sin? And Elliot Page just had her, with quotations, breasts removed by a criminal physician. You're saying that you think that your audience wouldn't understand what you're saying. We both, I don't think that's honest. I think that you know that you needed. Listen, man, I'm not trying to be fucking rude. Here's the thing. People are going to be upset with this. It is very clear to me that Jordan Peterson struggles with Twitter interactions and online interactions. I don't think that that's an unreasonable take. I think that Jordan is also not understanding how his blaring large popularity is having an impact on him, and he's caught in a feedback loop between him and his audience, which happens to everybody. And I used to do that too when I was like only like on TikTok, and it wasn't nearly as big as him. But you get caught in a feedback loop. And I think he's caught in a more conservative feedback loop. And I'm not saying that like conservatives are bad, but when this is the thing. It's like he's caught in a conservative feedback loop where like his audience, he's getting positive attention from conservatives, negative attention from progressives. So he's leaning more and more into his like conservative audience. And so I personally think that whether he understands it or not, this framing here, this is like this is the way he speaks now, because he's speaking to conservatives now. It's not that they are dumb and wouldn't understand it. It's that that's how he speaks now. He speaks to conservatives more. That's his audience. And I think that there's also possibly an aspect of it where he's like almost afraid to say something that would make them say like, fuck you. If you suggest to a conservative audience on Twitter, not in the real world, people don't give a fuck. Go ask your like conservative mom or dad, what do you think, Elliot? They'd be like, I don't care. That's literally the conservative versus the typical conservative response. Like, I don't fucking care. But on Twitter, conservatives are fucking nuts, just like progressives are, are as well. Everybody's a fucking nut. And so, like, I don't think he realizes that he's being socially influenced. And if he had disagreed, if he had, God forbid, properly gendered them and didn't make it an issue, people would be like, "Oh, Jordan, I thought that you were base and red-pilled,"
The days of the degenerated postmodern and Marxist ethos that we must still, no matter how impossible it is, abide by, or else. And you might object.
What's impossible?
Ellen/Elliot is an adult, 30-something, and fully capable of making up his, her, their own mind.
Why are you doing this? Like, just keep saying Elliot. Like, you're overcomplicating this for no... It's almost like you're writing an essay and you just feel like you need 1,000 words. Like, what the fuck?
About such things, and she, he, they are welcome from the liberal and the libertarian position to go to hell in a handbasket as she, he, they see fit.
What?
And fair enough, to some degree. But I don't believe it is either merely picayune or inappropriate to point out that Ellen/Elliot, who is quite a good actor/actress, is also a ritual model for emulation, being a star with all the privileges and, let us point out, the responsibilities that go along with that.
Okay, so his argument is that Elliot is an adult, they can do what they want, but they're also have an influence on other people, and this could be sending a message that being trans is okay to kids. That's what's being communicated here.
By acquiescing to this surgery and by publicizing it and by insisting upon the sanctity and the moral virtue of his, her, their new, expensive, dangerous, and medically enhanced identity, and by participating in the whole identity charade, Ellen/Elliot has undoubtedly, with his, her, their so-called courage, and remember the White House itself has tweeted out every indication of believing in the courage of those who transition, enticed many...
Well, yeah, it can be courageous, especially in spheres where people don't accept it.
A poor, confused adolescent, girl most likely, to blame her emergent pubescent self-consciousness, confusion, and discomfort on being born in the wrong body.
They're 35, Jordan.
And believing that the courageous, self-affirming, and morally admirable route is hormonal treatment, sterilization, subjugation to a lifetime of expensive medical complication.
Well, they're rich, so it doesn't matter.
How delightfully profitable is that? And misery.
So, like, here's a big problem I have with this. Jordan's fundamental argument is that Elliot's too fucking stupid to make their own decision. That's what it is. It's one of those things where, like, oh, you're dumb, you don't really know what's going on, you're just, like, stupid and you're ignorant. That's Jordan's fundamental argument here, is that like that Elliot's being manipulated by the system for money and whatnot. Here's the reality, okay? Everybody has it. Like, okay, I don't have the general progressive perspective on like why I affirm transness, and I'll explain to you why I affirm transness. To me, it all starts with some kind of mental incongruence. I would consider it a mental disorder, gender dysphoria. Apparently, it's reclassified as a sexual health condition, and the reason that they've done that is because conservatives will be like, oh, you have a mental disorder, so you're invalid. That's the reason why they felt the need to change that. I'm just letting you know. But to me, like, there's lots of mental disorders. So, like, I don't think you're invalid because you have a mental disorder. To me, it's not a negative thing, but for people, they say that it is. Well, here's what we know. We know that there's some kind of mental incongruence, and that's gender dysphoria. And I guess there are trans people that don't have gender dysphoria. I don't care about them right now. We're specifically talking about this. Right? Okay. So then we look at like, well, how do we treat this? That's how I look at it. How do we treat something? There's a thing here that people are, it's not that they just want to be a thing. People are like, oh, I wanted to be a fucking fireman when I was a kid. I wanted to be a fucking butterfly. You don't see me putting on fucking wings and shrinking myself like honey, I've shrunk the kid. It's because there's a difference between wanting to do something or feeling like you want to be something versus like feeling it to such a degree that you want to kill yourself. Like that's where it becomes a mental issue. It becomes some kind like that. We have to understand this thing, right? Like if I had a bad day at work, right? And I come home and I'm sad. Like, okay, that's sad. If I come home and I contemplate shooting myself in the face, I have some kind of a mental issue that we need to figure out. Why does Papa God want to shoot himself in the face? You know what I'm saying? So like that's the difference. It's like that's how they feel to such a degree that they want their suicidality drastically increases, right? So we have a diagnosable issue here that needs to be recorrected, right? It's like, okay, well, how do you do that? Well, for every issue is different. I'm going to compare it to anorexia because people are saying like, well, anorexia, for anorexia, the way you treat something fundamentally, they'd say like, well, the way you treat gender dysphoria is by basically going through some kind of a transition. Like it's all dependent on the person. It could be social, it could be medical, you need therapy, of course. And they'd say like, yeah, well, if we let anorexic people do what they wanted to do, they would die, which is true. The thing is, we don't treat people based on what they want to do necessarily. We treat people based on the best way to have them operate positively in society. And the best outcome for anorexia is not to not eat anymore because you'll die. But you won't die if you transition, right? If there was a way that we could like let anorexic people not eat and they won't die and they'll be healthy, that would be great. But it simply doesn't exist. With trans people, however, transitioning is what helps them. That's it. Right? Now you'd say like, yeah, but Papa God, statistically, suicidality doesn't decrease when they transition. Here's the problem with that. The overwhelming majority of people don't actually finish their transition, especially trans women, because it's more expensive to feminize somebody than it is to masculinize somebody. Did I use that? Masculinize? I don't know. Right? So what happens is when they say they are just as suicidal after transition, they don't point to the end point of transitioning. If I could start, technically, if I socially transitioned, you could consider me transitioned. Oh, he didn't get happier after he transitioned. Well, yeah, because I just started wearing a fucking dress and shaving my beard. But I didn't start hormones. It takes years to go through these. You start with going to a therapist. They recommend you socially transition. Maybe you dress a certain way sometimes. You get comfortable. You go on hormones. You go on like whatever hormone for a year. Then you go on a different hormone as well. It's a whole process. So you can't point, like, I guarantee you that the statistics for people who finished their transition, especially people who had the money to do so and were able to like really, like Caitlyn Jenner, probably a phenomenal quality of life. Your Caitlyn Jenners, your Blair Whites, phenomenal qualities of life because they finished transitioning. Whereas most people don't finish. So when you say, well, they're still just as suicidal, it's because they didn't finish their fucking transition. Most trans people, specifically trans women, they don't really look like women. And that's not saying that to be disparaging. It's just the unfortunate reality of lack of access to gender-affirming care. It's expensive. It costs like hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yeah, like your Christine Weston Chandlers. Very good. Christians. So the best way to operate with the most success is going to be transition. Now, not for everybody. There are some people with gender dysphoria who actually do better not transitioning. It depends on the therapist. It depends on the person. And the therapist is there to help them figure out what's best for them. But generally, it'll be to transition. This is the best outcome for the person to function in society well. That's as simple as it is. And then we go like, okay, well, what do we lose as a society here? Right? Nothing. Things are a little weirder. If you blur the lines between men and women a little bit, doesn't really matter. We don't really lose anything. Do we lose something? No, we don't. Boom. That's it. That's why I affirm trans people. Now, I know a lot of dumb fucks are going to be like, what about pedophilia? They compare it to pedophilia. All right, pedophilia, right? If you let them interact with children, the children get hurt. Nobody gets hurt here. Nobody gets hurt when you let a trans person transition. You can't let a pedophile interact with a child. That's why it's disanalogous. Do you understand? People with gender dysphoria have so much distress associated with their gender identity that they're a harm to themselves. And that's what makes me affirm trans people. So I felt like I needed to go into that.
And I believe firmly that Ellen/Elliot, or whatever the hell her name or his name is, bears...
Bro, their legal name is Elliot. Just fucking say Elliot.
...moral culpability for that. And finally, with regard to the final phrase, criminal physician. I must say that I've had some post-coital, so to speak, regrets about that phrase. It is clearly the case that the surgical operation performed by the butchers who butchered Elliot/Ellen was legal.
Bro, do you just love... I mean, listen, I love boobs too, so I see where you're coming from, Jordan. Butchering those... Jesus Christ, I can't... Bro, like, it's just too sexist. Like, I'm like, I love boobies. They had such nice boobies. It's like, fuck. Like, I like to sprinkle a little bit of edginess, but god damn it, I feel it's too much even for me to make this joke. Jordan, you don't have to want to fuck Elliot Page. They got rid of their boobas. That's okay. They're happy. Go jerk off to... There's a ton of people like Elliot looking on the internet. You know. Just look at porn, bro.
So, was it criminal or not? Were the operations...
Well, it objectively was not criminal because it wasn't against the law. So,
undertaken by the fascist physicians who carried out the Nazi medical experiments legal?
So, Jordan, you have this habit of conflating... You have this habit of not understanding what consent is. Like, the people who had Nazi experiments done to them didn't consent to that. I hope you know that. Elliot did. That's the fundamental difference. Elliot consented without any outside force stressing them out. It's really bizarre that, like, you'll virtue signal about this. Like, you pretend... It bothers me because it's like it's like people like Jordan pretend to care about trans people, and they just think that they're dumb fucking children, even the adults that just don't know what they want to do in life. And it's like, that's disrespectful in and of itself. What is, like, Jesus Christ? And now you're comparing somebody going through a surgery and treatment that makes them feel better to being basically some kind of a Jewish person during the Holocaust. It's insane.
Yes, under the laws of the time.
Oh my
God.
God.
Were they criminal? I'll leave that question up to you to answer.
Well, yes, but it was not consensual. So.
And further.
So you guys always joke about, like, why do we need to talk about consent? Motherfuckers don't know what consent is. This motherfucker doesn't know what the word consent means. Okay? You think I'm joking. This motherfucker clearly doesn't know what it means.
Perhaps it might be objected, what about the damage done by hypothetically leaving those confused about their identity to dwell in their confusion? Aren't we morally obliged to intervene?
Yes, that's why we should have universal health care so that people can see a therapist to figure out what they need to do and make sure they get the right treatment so they don't get misdiagnosed with gender dysphoria if they don't actually have it. Because it does happen, and we need to talk about it. Yeah, but unfortunately, in America, we don't do that. We need some form of universal health care. Like, what the fuck? That's what you're advocating for here, basically. I know that you live in Canada, but...
And I would say, no.
What?
Why? Well, first,
what?
Do no harm, as the Hippocratic Oath, remember that, insists.
What?
And second, it has been a matter of historical consensus
what?
That sins of omission are less egregious than sins of commission.
What the fuck?
Thus, leaving someone with gender dysphoria, no matter how warranted, and perhaps it is in a very tiny minority of truly unfortunate cases, to suffer the consequences of the theoretical mismatch between soul and body is less of a risk ethically, personally, socially, and philosophically than the extremely active intervention that constitutes so-called gender-confirming, another hated phrase, surgery. I might also point out that the trans surgery enterprise...
By this logic, we shouldn't treat anything ever, right? So, like, his argument... Dude, I'm fucking so tired for this. His argument here is that we're better off leaving genuine trans people, I guess would be the way that he would say it, to be really upset because we wouldn't want to potentially misdiagnose people. Well, apply that to anything. It's autism. We don't want to misdiagnose autism, so let's just not help anybody with autism. Oh, ADHD. Let's not misdiagnose. We don't want to misdiagnose. Where the OCD? Where does it start and end? The point of a therapist is that they're supposed to use their 6, 8, 10 years of experience or schooling plus experience to help people properly navigate whatever their specialty is. Now, again, we need to have better conversations about properly diagnosing, but you should be on board with that.
is now a $300 million per annum growth industry. Rate of projected expansion, 15% per year. Projected increase by 2027 to $750 million.
Wait, what are we talking about? Hold on.
So-called gender confirming, another hated phrase,
Oh,
surgery.
surgeries. Yeah.
I might also point out that the trans surgery enterprise is now a $300 million per annum growth industry. Rate of projected expansion, 15% per year. Projected increase by 2027 to $750 million.
Well, who cares? So it's really interesting that like people who tend to like align with capitalism, they just when it's convenient, capitalism no longer matters. So the argument here is that there is an increase in gender affirming surgery. I'm just going to assume it's true financially, and that's because people are finding more access to it and they're feeling more comfortable with the transition. Now, there's also conversation now about social influence, and I get that as well. But the reality is that there's more of a desire for it because it's more accepted in society, and so people feel more comfortable engaging with that. So it's a service that's needing to be provided more. It's just fucking capitalism, baby. If you'd like to reduce the amount of money that it makes, advocate for universal health care. Also, I would really love to understand these statistics, because part of me feels that they're conflating. Okay, so I would love to see the statistic. And the reason is because I feel like when we talk about gender affirming care, how do they categorize this? Do they categorize this as people getting surgeries that they want gender affirming care for? Or are they categorizing surgeries that are associated with gender affirming care? Those are two very different things. And the reason I say that is because if anybody goes and gets their breasts reduced, that is something that could be considered gender affirming care, but it could also just be something that a woman is getting so that they don't have as many back problems. And so if we're just saying, oh, well, there's an uptick in breast reductions and breast removal and this, that, and the other thing, or like feminizing facial structure shit, whatever, any kind of a surgery, all of a sudden, are we talking about gender affirming surgery? Or are we just talking about anything that could be associated with gender affirming surgery? And we're conflating it because we might actually just have fundamentally a self-image issue in our society causing people to get more cosmetic surgeries, which I guarantee you with the uprise of social media. So like, is all of this people with gender issues, or is some of these people just have like regular like body issues? I would have to see the statistic, and I'm going to look for it, but I can't really find. I would like to see his statistics.
Per year. An expanding enterprise in a time of global uncertainty. Time to invest, both in the requisite surgical skills and perhaps in any industry associated with this vicious and unconscionable fad, primarily entangling, as such things so often do, the youthful and female. Isn't that a concern, intersectionalists? Not when push comes to shove.
Yeah, but this is a totally different conversation. Well, it's a similar conversation. The conversation about like the social narrative. The thing is that he's conflating all transness to like the potential negative aspect of the social phenomenon. You know what I mean? Like, he's not being like, okay, there's genuine trans people, but then there's also some people who aren't trans who are being misdiagnosed in some capacity through like school and social media influence. Those are like, this is what we call nuance. I don't know how, like, Jordan is a very intelligent person. The fact that he's like ignoring nuance now is bonkers.
Or ideology to scalpel. Is that not a true moral hazard? And I'm not taking down that tweet or acknowledging that my tweet violated the Twitter rules.
Why?
Up yours, woke moralists.
What?
We'll see who cancels who.
It would actually be who cancels whom, Jordan. But Jordan, this is a very prideful, self-destructive behavior. Take the L and move on. But now, theoretically, if you can't use Twitter anymore, you're losing one of your abilities to speak your voice on the internet. So you're actually losing.
Twitter's a rat hole in the final analysis, and I have probably contributed to that while trying to use, understand, and master that horrible, toxic platform.
Masturbate.
No doubt, I owe some apologies for that, and I'm trying to learn. But it's a relief, in some real sense, to be banned, and I regard it under the present conditions as a badge of honor.
Well, that's cringe. But, okay. interesting video. What a rant. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and another special shout out to all my Patreon and Twitch subs. If you'd like to support this channel further than you already have by just watching the video alone, go down to the links below where you can sub on my Patreon, which will allow you to get your name on this beautiful black wall. Or you can go to the Twitch page and you can actually use a free Amazon Prime sub, if you have Amazon Prime, to subscribe. Thank you very much, guys. Take care.